Hi, this is Eddie Deezen. You're listening to Breaking the Fourth Wall. I was Mandark in Dexter's laboratory. Ha 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 ha.
You are listening to Breaking the Fourth Wall on Realm of the Mist Entertainment. Hey, what's up, guys? Christopher Stolle back with you for another Breaking the Fourth Wall Journal of the Jedi special. I am joined once again by Darth Wren, the Master Wren.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good.
And we are going to pick up pretty much where we left off on the last episode. As we told you, it would wind up being a two-parter because of the fact that we really jumped down that rabbit hole about the Bad Batch. In fact, I want to pick up where we left off by bringing us back around to our overall opinion so far of the Bad Batch. So let me preface it this way for you. Do you think it's a worthy successor to the Clone Wars?
The Clone Wars were okay, but the final season was really good.
Which final season? Are we talking about the Lost season, season 6, or are we talking about the we've listened to the fans and brought you season 7?
Oh, the actual last season of the Clone Wars.
Okay.
Vader. There were 2 last seasons?
Yeah, because before Disney Disney bought Lucasfilm, they had released season 6 straight to DVD, and they called it the Lost season because of the fact that I guess Clone Wars was canceled by Cartoon Network or wherever it was being broadcast at the moment. And they had finished the season 6, but it was never released on TV. It was just direct to DVD, like, you know, the 6th season DVD.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so that's why I was like, are you talking a Lost season, or are you talking about episode or season 7 that was the fans demanding they wanted more?
Wow. Well, they certainly got a good last season.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. Oh man, I thought it was blown out of the water. So how was the Lost season different? I imagine by quite a bit.
Well, it didn't make it all the way to Order 66. That was one of the things that season 7 really filled in, is it brought everything to, you know, Revenge of the Sith. And beyond, obviously, because we had Vader in the final scenes walking up to where all the dead clones were and shit. But, I mean, season 6 dealt mainly with, like, Ahsoka's downfall to the Jedi Order and how that affected Anakin.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so if you've never checked out season 6, you know, the lost season, you should definitely check that out. You know, because I mean, I would definitely say season 7 was a lot better than 6, but I would not discount 6 as, if they never did season 7, I still would have been satisfied with 6. If that makes sense.
Yeah, actually, I don't think I even saw season 6. I watched some of the Clone Wars here and there, but there were many of them. I'm not going to catch up with this. I saw the episode about the Darksaber, and then I skipped to the last season, and that was phenomenal.
Well, the one thing about the Clone Wars, I would say, is, and it was demonstrated again with Rebels, and I will use Rebels as the analogy here. When Rebels first came out, I thought it was kind of kiddish. And there was a lot of episodes that I felt were kind of filler episodes until the final season, where you saw that everything interconnected. It told a full cohesive story, and even things that you thought were unimportant wound up mattering later. And that's the mastery of Dave Filoni, because I think the Clone Wars, for the most part, did the exact same thing. You know, so lightning struck twice in the animated series. Unfortunately, there is the black sheep known as Resistance, and that was just a failure. But beyond that, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But now it makes me curious about, you know, we know that Bad Batch is a spin-off of the Clone Wars. We know that it's meant to be a successor to the Clone Wars, but will it live up to the expectations of Clone Wars fans, in your opinion?
I think so. Um, it has a very interesting air of mystery to it, and I like. And I know I talked about this earlier today, but it has a very empty feeling to it, and whether that they've somehow managed to pull that off by design, or if it's just me knowing that the Jedi have been slaughtered or in the process of being slaughtered during that time. And for me, that genre without the Sith and the Jedi is just kind of an empty place. I'm not really
but
which it. I'd be interested in hearing from other people what they think, but
I presented to you. I did present to you in last episode. I did present to you that I would imagine there would be at least an opportunity to bring in the Inquisitors, like the start of the Inquisitors into this. I think it would be an opportunity. But I thought about this off camera while I was dealing with the other show and everything else. I thought about this too, and I think you would appreciate this. What if they involved Maul and Crimson Dawn that was introduced in Solo?
Ooh, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting because Maul, we haven't seen much of him in a really long time. And this is during a period of time where he's around, and he's an interesting character because I assume Palpatine thinks he's dead.
Right.
But, and Palpatine is under this delusion that it's only him and his patsy ruling things, and Maul is just hiding and surviving. So seeing about more of his story during that time would be interesting as well. It would be interesting about the Inquisitors, but I don't know how they, or maybe just superficially, because there's been quite a bit written about them and the hellish conditions that they were living under, the laws and whatnot in the comics. But, are they going to stick with the comic books version of the story, or are we going to see a different version of things?
I think we might see an offshoot of it. And I was thinking about this off air, and this is, for people listening, this is spitballing. I have no idea if they're going to go this direction. This is just something I came up with, and if they did this, it'd be cool, but if they don't do this, maybe it just wasn't a good idea. But in the first episode, they reintroduced Caleb Dune, a.k.a. Kanan Jarrus.
Yeah.
Right, as a young Padawan, and the Bad Batch were trying to save him, with the exception of the sniper guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. What if later on down the line they find Caleb Dune? They help him become Kanan Jarrus in some way, shape, or form. But part of that is they're protecting him from being hunted by these mysterious Inquisitors.
Oh, that would be cool. That would be cool. So if they are able to help him finish his training, then perhaps they find a group of Jedi somewhere who can help him get trained up.
Well, Kanan never really finished his training. He just kind of went into hiding, took up an assumed name as Kanan Jarrus, and started working with the Ghost ship, helmed under Hera and all that. I would imagine if they did any type of story arc with Caleb, I would imagine it would be turning him into Kanan Jarrus and getting him not seen as a Jedi, even as a Jedi Padawan. So I imagine they would be a protection detail running from maybe one or two Inquisitors, not one of the main ones, but one of the other Inquisitors. Mm-hmm. And that would be the involvement. We may not get the whole entire Inquisition, but we can at least get one or two chasing after Caleb. Mm. And maybe the Bad Batch, work their magic to protect him in some way, shape, or form, which would tie into Rebels. But again, This is spitballing. I don't know. But overall, I think it's got good potential.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm being cautiously optimistic because of the fact that it is based off of the Clone Wars and could tie into Rebels, and both are major success shows. It is helmed under Dave Filoni, who knows what the hell he's doing. That I fully expect what I don't like about it now will make sense later.
Yeah, and I'm trying to come to terms with the vibe I'm getting it from it now is something that I don't like, yes, but that might be by design because it's like the Dark Ages. I mean, horrible things have happened, and literally everything is just soaked in just this depression, horribleness of what's going on. And
But yet there's a happiness. I mean, even in this newest episode that they released, one of the things I'm finding intriguing is seeing how the general populace is accepting the new galactic empire all around the Bad Batch. Like, they were on this planet in this last episode, and they're seeing people holding parades and celebrating the war is over, while there's this kiosk over there telling you to turn in your worthless Republic credits to get Imperial credits because the Empire cares. You know, like the propaganda and everything else. And I'm fascinated by we're seeing the birth of the Empire through the eyes of the people. And a lot of them at this point are very accepting of it because to them it's the war is over.
yes, actually, yes. That might be part of the reason why the story feels kind of empty to me. Is because partly I think because of that, because the population they're so disconnected or unaware of what happened to the Jedi, or maybe they don't care, or maybe they think the Jedi should be wiped out anyway. Maybe they figure people shouldn't have those kinds of powers.
Or it could or it could very simply be like art imitating life for that matter, where people see shit on the HoloNet, the Palpatine standing up and saying that the Jedi betrayed the Republic, and the people are just like, okay, well, they're the villains then. They deserve to be hunted down and killed.
Exactly.
Just buying what you hear on the news, basically.
Yep. Yeah. And it's that kind of it's the acceptance of the population of just this horrible kind of quasi slavery, but they don't see it that way, where they're being lied to, but they see it as being truth. It's just that kind of that sense. I mean, it's a type of hopelessness in a way that there's no one fighting. There's no heroes. There's only basically the villain one. All the
Right.
Jedi are gone. The Senate is like in the palm of his hand. Padme, she's dead. I think.
Yeah, she's dead at this point.
Yeah, she's dead.
It's after Revenge of the Sith, so we're in that awkward phase again of between episode 3 and episode 4. But what makes it interesting is most of the other explorations into this gap, this 20-year gap between episode 3 and episode 4. Most of the stories like Rebels and Solo and Rogue One took place towards the latter end of the 20 years. This one's taking place day one after Order 66.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's an interesting time to be within the first 5 years of the transfer of power, as opposed to, we're in the 19th year of the living under the oppressive rule of the Empire.
Yep.
At this point, there is no rebellion. At this point, there is no, Death Star threat or anything like that. It is literally, a new government sprung up and it's for the people and we're going to be okay.
Yep.
And it's going to be interesting to finally see the honeymoon phase of the Empire fall.
Oh, yes. Yes. And I assume they're probably going to include that in the series. So we would see, so basically we're seeing what happened with Order 66 and the honeymoon phase, and then hopefully we'll begin to see the beginnings of the end of the honeymoon phase.
Right. We'll start seeing the oppression, the Grand Moffs being installed as regional governors, and things going not so well.
Yep. Yep. I definitely want to see that. And I want to see how the population begins to react to that. Because right now, it's a little hard to watch because it has this emptiness feeling to it. But I think that's why. I think that's one of the reasons why is because people are just accepting this horrible leader with open arms, and there's no heroes. They're all gone. They're all dead. And it just feels so empty,
And this is coming from a Sith supporter, folks. Just I want you to take that in mind. Even she's
Right.
complaining about there are no heroes left.
Well, a Sith can be a hero.
That's an interesting point. That is an interesting point, and it would be interesting to see that. Maybe we would see that if Maul turns back around. Maybe him and his crime syndicate help the Bad Batch in some way where they are an anti-hero, but certainly still a hero of that episode. You know what I do hope? I will say this, though. Since we are back in the Clone Wars era, we are back in the world of Dave Filoni and his wheelhouse. I want to see Cad Bane and I want to see Hondo make returns.
Oh, yes. Actually, quite a few people have been talking about Hondo.
I want to see Cad, and I definitely want to see Hondo make an appearance in some way, shape, or form.
Yes, especially Hondo. I think right now we definitely need a character like Hondo.
Well, we have one. I mean, again, I said it earlier. Wrecker's my favorite character. This guy's just a big softy and a dumbass, but he's funnier than hell. While everybody else, I mean, you got Hunter, who's acting like freaking Rambo, and is obviously the leader, and he's going to be the main lead, and that's fine. Then you got Tech, who's the brains, and he's so monotone, and you got Echo, who I don't really know what they're doing with Echo, to be honest with you, and then you got Omega, where I've already expressed my opinion on Omega. To me, the most interesting character is the one who just wants to bash things and blow them up, and then sit down and eat.
Yeah, I do like that character a lot. But I feel that, I don't know. I think part of it is like the Hondo is this rebellious leader kind of person. And I feel like the story right now doesn't really have anyone who's addressing the situation as like a leader would. What I see is just a bunch of survivors scrabbling around to exist.
I will tell you what I hope they do not do.
What's that?
Do not bring in Obi-Wan Kenobi. Do not bring in Yoda. They're in isolation. It's already been set up storyline-wise that nobody knew where they were.
I agree with that. And I think for this type of story is it needs to have that emptiness, that hopelessness, because of what had just happened and the welcoming nature of the planets are to Palpatine. They're like, yay, this is great. Get all the bad Jedi, and now we're getting better money for our credits and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, they're just so clueless. And it's this weight, and it's kind of a weight that reminds me of the time, and I mean, they made the movie out of it, Rogue One, where who was it? The general there, the fish guy.
Oh, Akbar?
Akbar, yeah, said that these plans are brought to us because of the death of so many people, and he started to, his voice cracked up a little bit, and even though that was just this little one line in a whole movie, that's like the only line that really stuck with me.
Right. Besides,
That
it's a
movie,
trap.
you felt the weight, right?
Well, Well, I think that's it. I think you're hitting the nail on the head. Is with this series, as you said, the weight, the hollowness, the hopelessness of this series. I think for most of us, who are in the know, meaning somebody who's not a 5-year-old who's just watching a cartoon for the first time, us who have followed the mythos and the stories and the story arcs and the canon, we're literally waiting for the hammer to fall because we know what's going to happen. Maybe not to these particular characters in general, but to the galaxy as a whole, we know what's coming. We know the Galactic Civil War is coming. We know the Rise of the Rebellion is coming. We know all that shit is in the horizon. So it's so frustrating watching these people living day-to-day lives where even what the Bad Batch does is so insignificant because at the end of the day, it's like, man, it's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic as well. And I have a feeling that there's going to be episodes where we're left sort of like, but I think as a story in its totality is probably going to be really good. I get that feeling. If what I'm feeling now is, by design and not really just me knowing about the genre, I think, and also, I mean, Dave is the director of it, so
he's the master. He is the Padawan to George Lucas. Yeah. If anybody understands Star Wars, it's him.
Yeah, and you really you can't have a guy like him doing all this who isn't a fan of the world building and the genre as a whole, because if you don't want to get into the worms and the eagles and really the deeper grit of the story and the vast variety of characters that you can do in the story, it becomes painfully one-dimensional very quickly.
Well, that's one of the things that I think have potential within the Bad Batch here. Because, yes, it is sitting in familiar territoriality with the fact that we know that the Galactic Civil War is about to happen. We know that Yoda and Obi-Wan are out there. We know Luke and Leia have just been separated, and one's on Tatooine, and the other one is now being watched by Bail Organa. We know the Death Star is being built. There is familiarity here, but there is an opportunity, which, like I said earlier, do not bring Obi-Wan and Yoda into the fold. That story's already been told. We don't need more canon into that, with the exception of the Obi-Wan TV show that's supposed to release. But as far as the Bad Batch, here's a unique opportunity that we may be in a familiar world space, but it's an opportunity to tell the stories of other characters that have nothing to do with Skywalker, that have nothing to do with Vader, that have nothing to do with what's up and coming, but what's going on around the situation as the up and coming is coming.
Yes, exactly. You said it perfectly. I mean, it's it's a epic tale, and we have our main characters that we already know. Frankly, their stories have been told to death already, but it's still such a juicy world that you could do really anything in this type of genre because you have a mix of fantasy and science fiction.
Right.
And it's I mean, you can explore so much with I mean, if you really want to go deep, all different kinds of psychology, mechanisms, and all this sort of stuff. But I think exactly, I think it's time that we can explore other characters living in the space of the environment, the situations that have already been created. We as viewers know what's coming ahead of them. The characters don't know.
Well, let's throw in a quick speculation. End of the series, when the series finally is done and shuts down, whether it's 4 seasons, 5 seasons, 7 seasons, whatever. Where do you think they're going to end it? I think personally, just to give you an idea, it's very vague, but I think the Bad Batch, or at least surviving members, because I think somebody has to die within the Bad Batch. And I don't mean the one that's that turncoated. I mean one of the ones that we have there now.
Oh, that we really enjoy. Like that. Yeah.
I think one of them has to die. I'm not going to say who or when or whatever, but I think at the end of the day, I think the Bad Batch are going to wind up being the commanders of one of the first rebellion cells.
Oh, that could be.
That's my prediction. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I imagine they're soldiers. They're talking about war, and even in this episode when they were talking about why are the people so happy, it's like, well, one side won, the other one didn't, so the war's over for one, but not for the other. That right there already stuck with me. It's like I could see them jumping at the chance of joining if they run into Bail Organa or Mon Mothma, and they talk to them about the upcoming rebellion. And I could see Hunter and them going, say no more, we're in.
That's interesting. I did hear something, and this was a rumor I heard, about they had gotten they were reviewing the final scripts. So apparently for the Bad Batch, everything has been already written out.
Which is good.
To its end.
They know where this story's going to go. That's good.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because then they could do jiggling, back in time.
Mm-hmm.
With the written material, with the script and with storyboard, and really make everything tight. And apparently people were crying.
That bad.
That bad. So it might be epic tragedy.
Which would be awesome. Especially with this show starting with an epic tragedy, since it started with Order 66. To end it with another tragedy, like maybe who knows? Maybe the Bad Batch were part of the ground troops of Rogue One.
Yeah, that could be.
I don't know, but they could be. That'd be a tragic end.
Or it could be that they were fighting in something and they died, and you just see like a clip of just the spark of the rebellion.
Right.
And that's all you get to see. It's just a moment of the rebellion just beginning to coalesce. And maybe they died without ever knowing that the rebellion was going to happen. I mean, that would be a tragedy.
Well, even if the rebellion's in its beginnings, if you killed them before Rogue One, it would be an epic tragedy because of the fact that they would never see the rebels' first victory, which was getting the Death Star plans. Before Rogue One stole the first Death Star plans, the rebellion was getting its ass kicked by the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they're there for the formation of the rebellion, they may die thinking it's a hopeless cause.
Right.
You know what I mean? So even in that aspect, they would see it as like, a very tragic ending. Like this is not going to work type deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, that's the rumor, that we got about the ending, but, we don't know why that was. Maybe it was the Bad Batch, or maybe it was something happened to Omega.
See, I'm still on the fence about Omega. I don't know. Like, I know that's what they did. I mean, in Clone Wars, Omega was Ahsoka, and we all hated Ahsoka in the beginning, and then she wound up becoming one of the all-time favorite characters. In Rebels, it was Ezra Bridger. He was an annoying little Aladdin-looking fucking street kid who wound up being this pivotal Padawan.
Oh, everyone wants to know what happened to him.
Right, who faced down, fucking Thrawn and shit like that, and disappeared in the unknown. Everybody's interested in it. So I'm expecting things from Omega, but as she stands right now, I don't know what to think of her.
Yeah, I mean, right now, she feels a little bit like a Grogu-ish kind of character.
Generic. Yeah.
She's cute and sweet and naive about the world and just trying to survive, and everyone has to protect her, and she makes, silly mistakes and that sort of thing. And so she's just kind of Grogu-esque right now. Or maybe the Inquisitors find her and they take her off to be an Inquisitor. Wouldn't that be a trip?
Well, I mean, I have heard rumors that some people think that she might be Force sensitive, which I don't know if I buy into that rumor because, again, she's a clone. She may be a Bad Batch clone, the same as the other ones where, like, things were not altogether the way they were supposed to be from Jango Fett's DNA, but, I mean, can you manufacture a Jedi or a Force user from somebody who is not a Force user?
This rings a bell. I remember somewhere about a clone that was produced who was Force sensitive, and supposedly that was impossible, but he was a freak of nature.
Well, I mean, again, if you go into current canon, the Palpatine we saw at Rise of Skywalker was a clone, and so was Snoke of Palpatine's, and they were Force sensitive, of course. In the Legends, you had Joruus, I believe he was, who was an insane clone, who was a Force user, and I believe he was supposed to be another Palpatine clone as well. So technically, a Force user clone should be Force sensitive because I guess you're cloning what made them a Force user. But can you make a Force user out of somebody who was not a Force user? Can you make a clone of Jango Fett who is Force sensitive?
That's a good question. I don't know if in canon that has already happened, but I do recall reading somewhere about a clone that was created, a male clone who was just destined to be a regular stormtrooper, and it turned out that he was Force sensitive, and he ended up running away. But I don't remember if that was Legends or if that was canon from somewhere.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure of that, but I mean, yeah, that is a question. Like there is rumors going around that maybe Omega's a Force sensitive, even though she is a clone of Jango Fett, just gender bended, which of course it raises its own question. You can make a female version of somebody.
Well, you just have to
block a chromosome. Yeah.
I mean, it would be fairly easy to do.
So I am curious where they go with Omega, but at the same time, at the moment, I don't like Omega because she is such a mystery. She is such a... You do not fit in this world right now.
Yeah. She definitely doesn't feel like... I agree. But there's a part of me that's also a little intrigued by that because, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm just kind of a misfit myself.
Right.
And it's like, wow, she doesn't fit. What the hell deal, which is interesting. And I think so far we've gotten used to Star Wars characters being kind of already vetted by the time we see them in the story. And this is a different approach to a character in a Star Wars story, and I don't know.
I kind of agree with you because when Star Wars was first born, Luke Skywalker was designed to be an everyman. The character of Luke Skywalker was supposed to be any one of us could be Luke Skywalker. He was an everyman on an adventure. But now we've kind of gone more into like with Rey and with Jyn Erso and with Ezra Bridger and with Omega. Now it seems like we go into the I don't want to be mean here, but like kind of the land of the misfit toys characters where it's not so much the everyman. Any one of us could be any one of these characters, and more about like this social outcast or somebody who did not belong finds a way to belong. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, I think it would be interesting though. I mean, the Bad Batch, they feel like they could belong in the Star Wars universe. But I think that's because they're pretty competent. They do, and in fact, they're very good at what they think outside the box.
Right, which is what made them such an elite force within the clone army, because everybody else was designed to be exactly the same. And then all of a sudden you have this espionage, balls to the wall, we don't follow the same plan group who was genetically created that way and plays on each other's strengths and weaknesses, because, Tech can't do what Wrecker can do, and neither of them can track like Hunter does. And, so I mean, all of a sudden you're finding the diversity works the best within the unit.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, like, for example, the 501st under Anakin Skywalker, they were under competent direction of Captain Rex and Anakin, of course, but at the same time, they acted the same way as every other clone regiment. They really didn't do anything different.
Yep.
So that definitely is why the Bad Batch stands out. What did they call them? Clone Unit 99 or whatever it is. I think that's the interesting part of the characters. But yeah, overall, I'm curious to see where they go with this and how far it goes. But I do think the Bad Batch. I kind of agree with the rumor. I think the Bad Batch has to end in some form of tragedy.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see this as having like a happy, like we're hugging each other and waving goodbye right before the credits roll kind of ending. My question is just how tragic is the ending going to be? Now, I mean, granted, it's only going to be so tragic because of, it is a child's show.
Again, you've watched the final season of Clone Wars. You've watched Rebels. They could take it dark.
And I was surprised. I was surprised at just how dark they went and just how adult they went with the season 7. That was like, wow, this feels like it was made for people of my age group, and not the the kids watching this, and
Right.
how many kids would really be able to grasp. Well, the scenes without any real talking, with when Vader was walking across the snow, and that whole scene was very lengthy.
Right.
But literally, it was just him walking across the snow and looking around and finding the lightsaber. Nothing was being said, and I'm watching this and I'm like, oh my God. And then I thought, I wonder how 10-year-olds are going to be perceiving this.
Right. Right.
Or if they're sitting there going, what's happening?
You wonder if they understand that Ahsoka escaped and isn't dead, or that the fact that Vader staring at Ahsoka's lightsaber found there in the snow amongst all the stormtroopers, or not the stormtroopers, the clone troopers, if they really understand the emotional impact Vader's feeling of seeing his Padawan's weapon that he gave her.
Yeah. But my burning question, and this is still burning today, how did Ahsoka get that lightsaber back?
She didn't. By the time Rebels and now The Mandalorian, she no longer carried the blue lightsabers. She carried white.
So she got brand new lightsabers, basically.
Yeah, she made her own. And the kyber crystals responded with white blades instead of blue.
You know what? I bet they're going to go into that during the Ahsoka series.
I would imagine they would.
I would love to see a scene of how she healed fractured kybers, blood kybers.
That may be how she wound up with a white blade. Maybe that's the explanation.
Well, I mean, old canon. um, you take a kyber that's been bled, and you can heal it. And once you heal the kyber, the blades are white. So that's old canon, though. But I don't know where they're going with that new canon. I do know that bleeding kybers is new canon.
It is new canon because the old canon for the Sith weapon was that the kybers. The reason the blades were red was the kyber crystals were manufactured and not natural.
Yep. I
So
heard that too.
basically, you were putting in a cubic zirconium instead of an actual diamond, for comparison for people. Yeah, and that's what produced the red blade.
Yeah, but I could have sworn I should try do a little bit more digging about it because I really do love kyber lore. But I could have sworn that both those ways existed at the same time. So a lot of Sith, if you couldn't get a kyber crystal, you could then manufacture your own and use that.
Right, steal a Jedi's and then bleed it.
Right. But if you can't do that, then you would manufacture your own. But I also heard, and this is from Old Republic gamers, that kind of a fun idea would be to have a Jedi who infiltrates the Sith using a synthetic kyber crystal. Because if it's synthetic, then the blade, it wouldn't have that close connection to its wielder like a kyber crystal would.
Right.
But also wouldn't resist you like a kyber crystal would. So it would be much easier for a Jedi to try to meld into the Sith by having a synthetic red
red blade, right?
Yeah.
Kind of shows that they have earned the right to be a dark Jedi / Sith, but at the same time, they've never actually betrayed their code or order to do so. They've never actually stepped into the dark side.
Yeah. Which would be a really fun gameplay to play, where you're this Jedi that infiltrated the Sith Order and you're just trying to survive and make your way around and get information and that kind of thing.
Well, see, again, we're down a rabbit hole because now you're bringing up a point that I've thought about. You know what, guys? You may get the rumors and speculations on another episode here. But I've thought about this with the success of Jedi Fallen Order as a video game. It was cool to again run around the same way you did in Legends with Force Unleashed, where you got to run around and do all this cool Jedi shit and take down all these hundreds of troopers and shit like that. But how cool would it be to have a Sith game where you are a Sith, or better yet, because there can only be two, which means you wind, unless it's not canon, you wind up as Darth Vader or something. But instead of that, how about you're an Inquisitor and the whole entire purpose of the game is to hunt down and kill a Jedi?
Well,
you have to track them and hunt them. It kind of gives you an RPG element, so you're tracking down clues and you're fighting through resistance cells and or rebellion cells, as it would be, and stuff like that, trying to find rumor of this Jedi Knight or Jedi Master that's in hiding.
Yeah,
obviously somebody that's non-consequential to the current canon, so you're not hunting Obi-Wan or Yoda, but you're hunting Joe Schmo that sat in the council that you didn't know about.
Yeah. I could see it as maybe a side quest, but as being the entire unless I guess the kind of characters that would be attacking you would be rebels.
Well, yeah, rebels, and of course, like all the other games, you had indigenous life forms as well. Animals and stuff like that, depending on what planet you were on. And of course, you could still incorporate things like the Night Sisters in there, which don't like the Sith or the Jedi. You know what I mean? So you can incorporate them as enemies as well. But the ultimate goal at the end of the day is you're hunting down this rumor of a Jedi, because we know the Inquisitor's first commandment, the whole reason they were created was to hunt down the remaining Jedi.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be a game very similar to Fallen Order, where it'd be more of a track game, you know?
Right, but I'm thinking like a open world third person game. A lot more open world than what Jedi Fallen Order was. But the hook of it is you actually get to be the dark side user. You actually get to be the bad guy and get to win as the bad guy.
Oh, well, I mean, for that matter, just play the Old Republic.
Right, but not everybody's going to play a game that's no longer canon, that's many years old, although it's still popular and it's still going strong. But, most console gamers and stuff like that are coming off of Battlefront and coming off of Jedi Fallen Order, but may want a dark side game.
Well, I mean, they probably have already played it through. I mean, the Star Wars, the Old Republic is still online and it's still growing.
I know. That's why I wasn't trying to dog it. I was just trying to say it's something fresh and new.
Right. I mean, well, that's really what they need. And they have been adding new material to that game.
Right.
I mean, it's a massive online world, so they're always adding new stuff to it. But it's a mix of canon and uncanon stuff right
Uncanon.
So, I mean, I wouldn't say that the game is no longer canon. It's still always has been what it is that it has some stuff that's canon, some stuff that's not. And some things, like the whole kyber crystal thing and the changing colors, was developed because of that game.
Right.
But, I mean, what I want to see, and this is what I hope that they're working on now with BioWare, is a game similar to the Old Republic, where it's not only open world, it's massively open world, where you can play a male, a female, different races. You could be a Jedi, you could be Sith, you could be a Mandalorian, you could be a bounty hunter, just a wide range of different characters and stories, and also have big changes in the story that you get to play based upon your decisions.
Well, that would be interesting, but they're in the rumor mill, and again, take this with a grain of salt. I have heard that BioWare is working on a Star Wars game, and I have heard that it's supposed to be Knights of the Old Republic. Not Old Republic, but I have heard rumor, and again, take this with a grain of salt, that they are either working on a reboot to it, a remaster of it, or an actual sequel to the second one, which means obviously Knights of the Old Republic 3. Now that's all rumor. It's circumstantial rumor. I have not been able to nail down sources to verify any of this. This is so take it as a grain of salt. But this is what I've heard from multiple different places that usually wouldn't report this type of shit unless there was some semblance of truth behind it.
All right. Well, that could be interesting. I mean, one thing I didn't really care for the Knights of the Old Republic is that it
was limiting. It was great storytelling and great RPG video game, especially for the Star Wars mythos, but it was very limiting. The level caps, you knew where you were going to be at what level, at what time in the story. It did definitely limit you. But then again, you also have to think back, those came out on the original Xbox and like the first Pentium PCs, so they were kind of limited by the the hardware they were running on.
And also the world building and the richness of living, quote unquote, living life, quote unquote, as that character, which I feel like those games didn't really have. The MMO though did.
Right.
NPCs reacting to you differently depending upon your behavior. It had cultural fallout stuff that would happen, and granted, the consequence for your decisions didn't really change the game as a whole because I mean, they only had so much computing power when they were building the game.
Right, there were consequences for your actions if you were a Jedi and you did dark side shit, and you would see it with the interactions of your companions, but not necessarily the world. Like your companions would be like, that was kind of shifty or shady, but that was the end of the consequence.
Yeah. Well, in the Old Republic, I've had companions leave. I had one guy, I forget exactly what I did, but he was like, "You're a you were just a freaking Sith, and I'm not putting up, you know, being around you." And he got into a ship and took off. And I was like, "But wait, I had reasons."
Yeah,
um,
maybe I shouldn't have hit that button.
right? He was gone, and in that game, you can't just go back to a previous save date.
Right.
Everything, yeah, every decision you make, that is it, unless you start the character from the beginning. I mean, I got a new companion, and she had a different personality. And you can make, I mean, you can play the same character type over and over again and just make different decisions and see how the game gives you different things and different people, different interactions. So it's not just you get a different lightsaber or you get different armor, but you get different gameplay and you get different experiences in the game. And that is what really hooked me because it's like, wow, this is more than just sitting down and playing a game. This is like story building. I feel like I'm almost making a little miniature movie or something
Right.
with my character, and it really it was engaging. It was almost like a novel that I was writing myself, sort of, and interacting with the environment and interacting with the other needs and wants of the NPCs, which was really interesting.
Well, see that's kind of why I would be interested in a modern adaptation of a game where you play the bad guy instead of the good guy. And I'll use two examples of why I would want to see something like that. On GameCube, you had Bounty Hunter, which was you played as Jango Fett. And you had to go through the whole entire thing, the story arc, in the way Jango would do it, which was fine, but that was an action game. As far as more of an RPG fascination with it, one of the most modern games that gave me a taste of playing the dark side was Star Wars Squadrons, which again was a flight simulator game, but the story arc you got to play as both Republic and Empire. Okay, so everything that's going on, like you would do a couple missions as a pilot that's part of the rebellion and you fly with this squadron, but then you're also playing another character for a couple missions as, an Empire TIE pilot connected to this squadron. And it leads up to both squadrons finally meeting each other, and in the end, obviously, the Empire falls, or the Empire squadron falls. But it was interesting to play the Empire side. You know what I mean?
What was so interesting about it?
A lot of the interactions in between the missions themselves, a lot of the interactions were you were talking to your squad mates or whatever else, and you got a look into their ideals of why they thought the Empire was a good thing and the rebellion were terrorists, and why they fought the way they fought and who they fought for and their reasons for fighting. And even within the missions, the story arcs as you're, taking down this regiment of rebellious starfighters or a shipping lane or something like that. And then all of a sudden you find this other ambitious Star Destroyer captain decides to screw up your guys' infiltration plans because he wants the glory. And now you're fighting not only the rebellion who's now alerted to your presence, you're pretty much fighting against another Star Destroyer who is doing what he's doing simply because he wants the glory and credit. It was a really interesting and more intriguing portion of that game than the straightforward, we're the good guys, we need to stop the Empire.
Oh, cool. Interesting. Yeah. And so I mean, I think we're really drawn to these games for very reasons. It's not just playing the game with cool superpowers or cool ships or whatever. Um, it's the interaction between the characters and the other characters and the environment, and that interplay that creates intrigue and drama and excitement. And it just, man, I hope they make more games like it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've loved Star Wars games during the fucking, during the days of like the Atari and the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo when they were just side-scrolling blah games. I loved the Knights of the Old Republic series. I've loved Episode 3's video game. You know what I mean? I've loved The Force Unleashed and even on the computer with like the Empire at War or Galaxy at War series and all that. I mean, all the way up to the Old Republic. I haven't played it in forever, but when I did play it, I enjoyed it. And the new canon stuff, I mean, yeah, okay, Battlefront 1 was kind of a disappointment because it was just multiplayer, blah. Battlefront 2, at least it had a single-player campaign, though short, was interesting. Squadrons had a pretty interesting story arc, but the game was very flight simulator generic. The standout canon video game right now was Jedi Fallen Order. But I'm excited for what comes after. Give me more Star Wars.
Yeah, and I think they're building up to it. A big part of the problem is they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out the stories and how these characters should interact with each other. I would love a Old Republic-esque style story where I can play a Sith that ends up having to work with Jedi.
That would be interesting. I mean, you could also go safe mode too. You don't want to fuck with the current canon. Create a first-person shooter, open world, like a Fallout 76, well, not 76, but Fallout style game, where you're a bounty hunter. And you have nothing to do with the Empire or the Rebellion, except for maybe avoiding them as you're trying to hunt marks.
Oh, that would be interesting.
You know what I mean? That would be interesting. And it doesn't even have to be a Mandalorian, although maybe, since it's an open world RPG, you could create a Mando. Or a Bosk or an IG-88 series droid or something like that as your character.
That would be interesting.
And that way you're safe. You could do whatever you want in the game because everything you're doing has nothing to do with the story as it's known so far.
Yeah, but oh man, I miss the esoteric stuff though.
Yeah, well, I'm saying you could do that stuff too. You could have real-time strategy games. I mean, not everything has to be a shooter and not everything has to be an RPG. We give us another racer, give us another fucking pod racing game. Set up like fucking a NASCAR game by EA Sports. And we would be happy.
Or should we hope for a game that's more modern, other than Star Wars: The Old Republic? I mean, a game that people have been playing literally for years because they keep expanding upon it. Or do we want a game that's kind of, you play it and then once you reach the end, that's it. That's all there is.
I think again, I know I just kind of spitballed it out there, but if you did a game as an example, as the bounty hunter game I just mentioned, where you have an open world, you have a main story to it, you have a side quest to it, and once all that shit's done, you should have plenty of miscellaneouses that you can still go out and do, and galaxy world building to explore. I think you could do a game like that where it has more content than just the 20-hour main story arc that you can continue to play.
Oh, so kind of Skyrim-esque.
Like Skyrim, exactly. Yeah, and I said Fallout. Fallout and Skyrim are basically the same thing. I just use Fallout because Fallout uses gun and Skyrim doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm familiar with Skyrim. I've played the hell out of that game.
Same basic concept. Open world. You have a main story. You have a couple like major side quests or DLCs. But even after the story is done, you could spend forever exploring the map, doing miscellaneous quests, discovering unknown shit. Do a game like that as a bounty hunter. Again, it doesn't touch on the mythos itself, so that way it doesn't screw up canon in any way, shape, or form. But you have an open sandbox, open playground to go do whatever the fuck you want to do in Star Wars.
Yeah, but what if I want them to touch a mythos? I want them to touch the hell out of mythos.
I'd be fine with it, depending on when it's set. Like a game like that, maybe I wouldn't want it set in between the sequel and original trilogies, because we've got so much content and everything's so set in stone for that era of Star Wars. Maybe it shouldn't be there.
No,
But
yeah,
if you set it in between the time of Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, like the rise of the First Order, then you've got plenty of area that you could fuck with, that you could have things wind up becoming canon.
well, the thing is though, for what I really want to see, it would have to be public in order to have all the players, to have the Jedi, to have the Sith, not just Jedi, but multiple temples of Jedi, multiple different sects of Sith, different groups of Mandalorians. I mean, like literally everybody, the circus and all the rings and like everything all together. The only way to get that, unfortunately, is really to go back in time to the Old Republic-esque era. And from what I've heard, they haven't been really touching Old Republic stuff that much yet. So I don't know when or if we will ever really see something like that. And the only other option is to go forward in time, after they bring the Jedi and the Sith back and other types of Force users, which I'm hoping we will see like within the next 5 or 7 years, maybe.
Right. When the next trilogy happens, that they say will not happen.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you, and I would agree that since they haven't touched with the Old Republic since the switch over of canon, where the Old Republic stuff is no longer canon, that the existing Old Republic stuff is no longer canon. The only thing they've touched is the High Republic, which I guess is the replacement of the Old Republic as far as like, you know, books and comics. There's plenty of sandbox area in there. I guess you could create a game like a Bounty Hunter or even a Jedi or Sith story arc game where you could have loose canon connections, because it's so far behind the Battle of Yavin that it really might not have any direct impact to, you know, Phantom Menace on through. But could still be part of, you know, the lore and mythos as far as canonically.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be a terrible idea.
Yeah, yeah, it would be. It would be interesting on when they go up. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like if you're playing an RPG style game, people are going to make their custom characters anyway. So it's not like you're playing a known canon character.
Right, but what you don't want when you have a solid canon is having an unknown generic character that somebody's going to create, having that strong of influence in the Star Wars mythos. Like, you can allow Cal Kestis to manipulate canon because he's a character. A generic PC character that you and I create, you don't want him or her having a major role in canon, because then that character has to become has to become canon too.
Well, I guess it would depend. I mean, we say a major role in canon. Well, I mean, it will be major events for your character and the characters that interact with your character. But as for the actual canon, the canonized, for lack of a better term, storyline, has very little or no impact on it. And I think the Bad Batch might be a little bit of an experiment in that, where they're doing major things for themselves and for people around them. But canon-wise, are they really going to impact anything going forward? Well, they can't because the movies have already been made.
Right.
But for their life, their piece of the galaxy, it can make all the difference in the world.
Well, that's kind of what I was meaning. Was like, okay, for the sake of argument, you're able to create whatever character you want, just like Skyrim or whatever else, and the end boss is you fight and defeat Darth Vader. That fucks canon up because who are you and why have we never heard about you beating Vader? You understand what I mean? Like there is some story, and it's an extreme example, but it's a story arc that cannot happen because it would mess with current timeline canon.
Well, but that's already been done though with Vader Immortal in the Oculus.
Okay, fair enough.
You mess with Vader.
Well, I mean, in the Legend series, Force Unleashed, I mean, you kick the shit out of Vader, twice basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's already kind of happening. I mean, you don't kill him, but I mean, there's definite ass whooping that goes on. I mean, I don't know. I think the story is robust enough that it can handle having people create their own characters and interacting in the world and also with these major characters without doing any kind of like damage to canon.
No, I would agree with that. I mean, one of the things I loved about Jedi Fallen Order, was the surprise of Vader at the end of the game. But, I mean, even though you do a little bit of battling with him here or there, he whoops your ass. He is Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th. You know what I mean? And I loved that. A lot of people may be like, oh, they made him too horrific or whatever else. I'm like, no. What they showed is Vader's a badass, and it takes a very special somebody that Cal is not to beat him. And that special somebody was Luke. You know what I mean? I love that they made him this impossible boss that you weren't supposed to beat anyway.
Wow. So you just needed to escape or have someone save you?
Yeah, you had to. That was the whole entire point, is you had to avoid him and escape.
I gotcha.
You cross the lightsabers with him once or twice. It's a couple moves and blocking him from basically tearing your head off. And then you run and he's force throwing shit at you. And then you get into this place and you think you're safe, and then all of a sudden the door opens and there he is, and you do it again. Like, it was just, it was great, because you did nothing to Vader. Nothing. That boy was wearing you down.
Well, I mean, he was just a Padawan, poor thing.
Right. Actually, at the end of the game, he was a Jedi Knight because what's-her-face, the black girl with the big eyes, who used to be a Jedi Master, knighted him.
Oh, gotcha.
So, towards the end of the game, you're no longer a Padawan. You're actually a Jedi Knight.
Oh, nice.
So.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm optimistic. I think there's so much that they can do with this. I mean, just across the board. I just hope that I get to see my burning heart's desires show up in either the stories or in the games someplace. That would be really fun.
Well, I agree with you. Yeah, one of the major downfalls to being a 44-year-old fan of a franchise that's 44 years old is the fact that, as great as it is that we get more Star Wars content and I get to live in this world more through various medias and stuff like that, the damn old misery is that sooner or later I'm not going to be alive anymore. And it saddens me to know that the story could continue on and I don't get to see where it goes. You know what I mean? Sooner or later, my ride has to end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially since there were so many years where we didn't get any new Star Wars content to speak of. I mean,
Exactly.
there were books, but yeah, just not quite the same.
No, exactly. You're absolutely right. We went through a, what was it, 1983 to 1999 drought of anything Star Wars, with the exception of the Legend series books. You
Yep.
know, and then again after 2005, when Revenge of the Sith really, finished, all we had was Clone Wars
Yep.
until that ended. That was only 5 years on TV until the Disney merger. Now we're getting stuff all the time, and it's great. But at the same time, it's like, man, all them years we lost.
Yeah. I that's the tragedy. That's the
And
bad
and like I
tragedy.
said, it's depressing to know that it's great as a fan. It's great to know that this mythos could live on forever, and there could be stories for generations to come. But the damning, depressing thought is one day I will no longer be able to keep up with it.
Yeah, I hope I live long enough to see um, the kind of character types and stories that that I wrote fan fiction about. That my soul is just yearning to see portrayed on the big screen. And I hope I'll be able to see it before my tiki torch is snuffed.
That's it.
Uh,
Yeah, I have to leave the island. Goodbye.
Good luck.
Wow.
I'm off to the next adventure.
That's it. I hope an afterlife actually exists, whether it's force ghosts or religious ghosts or just a haunting ghost, because I want to haunt a movie theater that shows all the
Right.
Star Wars movies. So that way, when you go to a sold out theater to watch the next episode, episode 25 of Star Wars, there's that one seat that nobody sits in because I'm sitting there.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's how I want to spend my afterlife. But what do you guys think about a lot of what we jumped through the hoops for? Would you want to see an all Sith game, or maybe an open world adventure as a bounty hunter? What do you think about our speculations about Bad Batch and where it may go from here? Let us know in the comment sections down below. Of course, give this episode a like if you enjoyed it. Share it out. Tell your friends all about it. And, of course, check us out audio-wise on Anchor.fm, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, or wherever quality podcasts can be heard. And as you can guess, we never even got into the rumors speculation. So we did a little bit. We talked a little rumors, but not the ones we had on top file. So I guess that'll be coming later on in the week. Just became a 3-parter.
Yeah. Well, we foretold it. We're like, you know what? This is going to be a 3-parter, isn't it? They're like, I'll be fine. We can just crank it out.
Yeah,
Like,
I didn't
nope.
think we were gonna rabbit hole it a second time, but we did.
Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah. Right
Well,
down the rabbit hole.
right on, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode.